The House of Commons is poised to select a new speaker in the middle of a session. Former Speaker Anthony Rota stepped down last week after inviting a Nazi unit soldier to Parliament. So what exactly is the role of the Speaker?
Oral questions, question oral.
The Speaker of the House of Commons maintains order and decorum in Parliament.
Members, the ones who used to sit way down there and now are over here, I can see you now as well as hear you.
They're impartial, ensuring all MPs follow the House rules and procedure.
Mr. Speaker. Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speeches, questions, and debates in the House are directed to the Speaker, but they do not participate, only voting to break a tie. The Speaker also oversees the administration and finances of the House. They manage staff and communicate between the Senate and the Crown. There are ceremonial duties that come with the role, hosting dignitaries and diplomats and representing the House of Commons abroad. The job also comes with some perks, a small apartment in the House of Commons, and an official state in Gatineau Park known as the Farm. There have been 37 speakers in the history of the House of Commons. It is uncommon to have a speaker resign. Any MP except ministers and party leaders may stand for election as Speaker. So far, 8 MPs have put their names forward, while Conservatives, NDP and Greens each have one candidate in the running. 5 Liberals are after the job. To become the Speaker, they must be elected by other MPs in the House. That election will happen tomorrow. Geoff Regan is the former Speaker of the House of Commons. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, JP.
So what do you make of this whole Jaroslav Hunka affair, celebrating a 90-year-old veteran of the Nazis in Parliament? What's this done to our reputation?
Look, I feel very bad about this, and I think lots of people do. It was a serious error, obviously, and I feel bad for my friend Anthony Rota. I'm not surprised, of course, at the result in view of what happened. And I think one of the things that members of Parliament will be thinking about as they talk to possible candidates for Speaker and vote tomorrow will be that they want someone who will listen to ideas they may have on how to avoid something like this happening in the future.
We'll get to the Speaker's election shortly, but I want to really dig down into this. Do you think there's more that needs to be done? Does there have to be more careful vetting of people who are in the chamber? You know, the Liberal government to this point has said they don't really want to police who the Speaker invites to sit in the galleries. But from your perspective, is there something else that could be done to avoid something like this again?
Well, first of all, I think the government is right to say that because it shouldn't be the government's role. Remember that in our system, the House of Commons is a confidence house, and the Prime Minister and Cabinet are the government only as long as they have the confidence of the House. Therefore, they must report to the House and not the other way around. And therefore, you can't have a Speaker reporting to them, right? They're not the Speaker's boss. The Speaker has to be impartial and independent. The Speaker is the servant of the House and the representative of the House. So that's why it's always been the case that only the Speaker decides who is recognized in the House. Now, this instance we dealt with, that we've seen, I think it's less a security issue than it is. There was a political risk, obviously, that wasn't perhaps identified. The list of people who would be in attendance would have been given to the Parliamentary Protective Service. I'm not sure who they would have shared it with, but that would have been to do things like a criminal record check, or are there any arrest warrants outstanding on the people being invited? And there's no indication that was the case here, but it's not their job to assess people for political risk. And that's where it's always been up to the Speaker and their staff. They're able to consult people. And of course, members of Parliament may now have their own views on whether there may be different things that should be done or that the Speaker should do, or a different process to ensure that doesn't happen again. Moreover, the House itself, if it wanted to, could make a decision about how this would happen in the future.
Maybe the Speaker needs an issues manager to sit and go over the guest list with them. Well, Anthony Rota has paid the price. He's out for this. And of course, as you mentioned, MPs will choose a new Speaker tomorrow. There's a fairly long list of candidates to choose from. 5 Liberals are on the list at last count. How do you think this will play out?
Well, that's going to be interesting. Look, I see on the list of people that names I've seen, I think they're all friends of mine on both sides of the House. or all sides of the House, perhaps, but I wish them all well. I'm going to be watching with interest. I must admit, I don't watch the House every day, but I will certainly be paying attention tomorrow because I'll be interested to see who ends up the winner. As you know, it's a process now which is quicker than it used to be. Once upon a time, actually, first of all, it was very quick in the sense that the Prime Minister would nominate the person. The Leader of the Opposition would second. They would have had a consultation before that. Then the rest of the House would adopt that person, basically a motion making that person the Speaker. And then I think it was 1986 that we first had elections, and there used to be could be a series of ballots. And if you had a lot of candidates, that could go on all day. Well, thanks to a motion from Michael Chong of the Conservatives back before the 2015 election, we now have a ranked ballot or a preferential ballot. Right. Which makes people do rank their choices, and they all count. The counting of that is therefore much quicker. I think people will appreciate that.
What do you make of the 5 Liberals running for it? Is there a chance that someone from another party gets the spot with so many from the same party in the running?
Well, let's keep in mind that the government does not have a majority, and the Liberal Party, doesn't have a majority, and therefore it's anyone's guess who each member wants to vote for. It's a secret ballot, so it's not a situation where parties can tell their members you have to vote for so and so, and we're going to watch, because they don't get to know how each member votes. Members can have all kinds of discussions about this. So that's one of the reasons I think it's so interesting to see how it ends up, and I'll be interested to hear the speeches from each of those members seeking to be on the ballot, and to see how it goes.
Question period is political theater. I don't have to tell you that, but there's one candidate who I think has an interesting idea. They're pitching getting rid of the MP's speaking list to make it a little more freewheeling, so the speakers aren't bound by what the Prime Minister office wants or what the opposition House leaders have in mind. Do you think that could work?
I think it's worked in the past. On the other hand, so I have mixed feelings about that, and that's something I thought about from time to time. And on the one hand, it certainly would add to the influence of the Speaker, and perhaps, I would hope, cause members to be to behave better and to try to win the Speaker's favor in a sense. On the other hand, it's a House in which the parties play major roles, and in our system should play major roles. And particularly for the opposition parties to be able to organize their attack in the House, I think is really important. I've been in opposition as well as in government. I've seen both sides of that. And so I don't know if it's possible to blend the two somehow, or how you ensure that the opposition parties can manage to organize their attack, so to speak, to organize the way in which they hold the government to account as they see fit.
Just very quickly, what do you make of how the MPs behave in the House? There's a lot of talk about improving decorum, but the people that actually sit in that chamber don't seem all that interested in it. Is there something they can do, the next Speaker, to fix this, or is it a hopeless endeavor?
Well, I think a lot of members do, actually, and it's amazing how much noise a few can make. And there are times when there are more than a few making noise, but a lot of the time it's a relatively small number. Largely, the House members have to decide for themselves how they're going to behave. This reminds me of the story I was told by my director of communications early on in my time as Speaker. Former Speaker Gilbert Parent was hosting the Commonwealth Speakers Conference, I believe it was in Ottawa, and he asked the Speaker from India, how do you control more than 500 members? And the Speaker from India said, I don't. I control myself. And that, frankly, was the best advice I ever got, because you can't really control everybody else, or anybody else in a sense. You have to control yourself, and it means as Speaker, sometimes you have to try to find ways to lower the temperature in the House. It's well known that I certainly would bring to the public attention whenever I could members who were repeatedly out of order and heckling. And I have to admit, it could be frustrating that didn't seem to have much impact. People didn't seem to care that much about the fact that the public learned that they had been heckling. Maybe sometimes when you have a huge majority, that's not an issue for you. But All I can say is I wish future speakers well in this regard. And look, there'll probably be somebody who's way better than me, way better than I was at this, who will succeed in due course.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Geoff Regan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.